This is Into the Blue, a podcast about becoming an officer with the Waterloo Regional Police Service. For each episode, we start with a theme and bring you two perspectives, one from an officer in training and another from an officer in the community. In this episode, it's all about getting started. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Rachel.
So, Mark, you are the service's digital content coordinator, and we've put you on this assignment to help dig up the stories for this podcast. So what are we hoping the listeners get out of this series?
Rachel, as you know, you're a police officer and you work every day in our human resources branch as a recruiter. But our process from being hired to a fully fledged police officer is very involved, and it expects a lot of the applicants. We're trying to give anyone thinking of applying a realistic understanding of both the process and of becoming a police officer, the training, and kind of what the day-to-day actually looks like.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. We have a lot of officers, so I'm curious to know who you ended up finding to follow.
We're hoping to tell the story through two of our members. One's a brand new officer just starting out, Elias, and Amanda, who's been on for a few years. So first up, we'll meet Elias. So I've been following Elias right from the job offer and through his training over the last few months. So the first time I met him, he had just made it through our process and was coming in unknowingly to be offered a job.
I was waiting for that phone call as y'all were instructing me. This day, you'll receive that phone call. It was, I believe, 8:30 p.m. Then the phone rang, and then I got told I have further questions for my background. I need to be at headquarters the next day. But then he said, don't lose sleep over it. I still lost sleep over it.
The process from civilian to police officer starts with that offer. Most of the times we make that over Zoom, but we knew how hard Elias had worked over the years to become an officer, and we thought we'd make it a little extra special. It's a very special moment for when a person goes from being an applicant to being a member.
Hi, Elias. Come on in. Nice to meet you. Yeah, very nice to meet you.
How are you?
Very good, my friend. We'll be back out there in just a few moments.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, see you.
All right, buddy. Thanks. Come on in. Put your jacket wherever you like. Take a seat with me, please.
I remember coming through those headquarters doors. I said, hi, I'm here to meet with Sergeant Michaels. And they badged me in, access-wise. And I saw this one door with a room. I walked in, large windows, and I saw Sergeant Michaels there greeting me.
Yeah.
Nervous for this sitch.
I could have met. Remember I said yesterday, I was like, don't be worried about it. Don't lose any sleep over it.
Let's be honest, when that gets said, it's still...
Yeah, of course, because you're like, why am I here? What's going on? So what I want to do is just take a few moments just to talk to you about...
It's crazy to say it's a dream come true, but it's a dream come true when he says...
More proud to let you know that congratulations, you've been hired by the Waterloo Regional Police Service for constable.
We would like you to be part of this policing family.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so good. Like, goosebumps.
I can tell.
Because it's something that you have always wanted, and that was just the first step to get in.
Good. Like, goosebumps.
I can tell.
I was sweating the entire time, but you feel that moment of relief, but it also didn't feel real at the same time because I felt like I've been dreaming of that exact same moment every single day, even when I worked at a tech company. I worked right across Central Division, and every time I saw those police officers testing their lights before their shifts, it was just an itch to just get started.
So for Elias, wanting to be a police officer was a goal he had set for himself when he immigrated to Canada from Jordan over a decade and a half ago.
So my mom is originally from Canada, but we lived in Jordan and with my dad. But we ended up coming back in 2008 with her and my two sisters. And yeah, I came here on August 2008. I remember that date because it was a critical date in my life. I came here with 0 words of English. I started interacting with Waterloo Regional Police officers through different youth programs. It confirmed my dream of becoming a police officer, especially when you see policing like from across the world, how it's so different. Did the Cops and Youth program, and actually throughout my volunteering, because police officers were my role models, That's how I started learning English, just communicating with the community, interacting, and here I am today.
Just find your name tag in there, okay? There he is. All right, go find your name tag, brother.
All right. I'm just taking a minute to take all this in. Because looking around this room, I can't be more proud of the people that I'm seeing joining our policing family here at Waterloo Regional Police Service. So thank you again so much for coming here today. Today is a wonderful day, is that you're going to be signing your conditional offer, and it's going to confirm that all of your hard work, your dedication, and the biggest thing here is you showed us who you are.
All right, nice.
Hey everyone, my name is Elias. I've lived in Kitchener, Waterloo region.
So Elias felt that his journey to become a police officer really kicked into high gear the moment he signed those papers. And just a few days later, he put on that uniform for the very first time.
How did that feel? Putting that on the first time, usually someone's going to look at themselves in the mirror somewhere, right? Like, how did that feel?
It felt real. Like when you put on that uniform, when you're signing your papers, you're signing your papers. But when you put on that uniform, it's like, wow. It's like, I have the pants with the red stripe that you always used to see, the badges, the patches right on both of your arms. You're representing the service, and it holds great authority when you wear that uniform because it holds tremendous powers in terms of assisting others and all the legal obligations that come with it. Once again, it felt right when they started putting the duty belts on, explaining to us how to put everything on your vest or on your belt, such as the CEW taser, the baton, the OC spray, the holster, the radio pouch. It's something you always see on police officers, and it's like, where was that existed? It just feels so right, and like it's so hard to explain because it feels like it's a pieces of puzzles that are finally coming together that are painting a full picture. It's just, you always envision yourself in that uniform, right? And once you see yourself in the mirror and you see it, it's that feeling that you feel. It's unique to everyone. I've talked to multiple people about it. It's so unique because it really is a validation and a confirmation of all your hard work and efforts. But you also got to understand it's only the start of a whole brand new journey. Policing is not like any other career.
So I feel like you can speak probably to any officer, and they can tell you probably that exact same moment when they put the uniform on is something similar. I'm wondering has that ever happened to you, Rachel? Like, is that something that's common?
Yeah. When I think about, I'm trying to think back to when I first put my uniform on. It was like 17 years ago. And I remember it being very surreal. Like looking in the mirror with the uniform on thinking, is this really me? And then feeling very proud that I was able to accomplish the goal that I had set for myself, for sure. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think even we'll later talk to another officer and some very similar story. So no matter who you talk to, everyone knows where the mirror was, when it was.
Yeah.
Was it here at headquarters? Was it just in the change room? But no matter what it was definitely probably a special moment. So once that offer is made, they come in, they have their uniform and their fittings and things like that. The process really starts to move pretty quickly. So Elias signed on a Thursday, and then he started working here the following Monday, so just a few days later. And we're going to follow him through all the training, but I think we'll leave him here for the moment. We're going to check back with him probably the next episode and pick up to see where he's at. And at this point, it's probably a good idea for us to take a little bit of a step back and explain that big picture of all the training that he's going to go through and others have gone through, and all of his classmates are going through as they become police officers. And I'm curious, do you find people have a true understanding of all that training when they're coming in?
Yeah, so I meet with a lot of people who are interested in applying, and so I explain to them the entire time period of training. Just initially, of course, we keep training every year. We do our requalifications every year, but when you first get hired, I think people are surprised that you do, I think it's almost about 7.5 or 8 months of training in total from, our in-house training with the training branch, going to Ontario Police College, and then post-training with our training branch, and then being with your coach officer for that period of time, which you can understand why we do that much training. There's a lot to learn, and truthfully, you're always learning. I'm still learning. You can never know everything. But I definitely think people underestimate the amount of training that we do.
Yeah, and I think that's fair to say. I've talked to a lot of people on kind of the same subject, and they said, it's a bit of a wall of knowledge when you're coming in, and it's a fire hose, which you'll hear them use that term a couple times in this, and there is a lot to know. Nobody is born being a police officer, and you've got to learn that stuff somewhere and somehow. So a new officer goes through a lot of practical and academic training. We've kind of separated up a bit in this, just try to focus on two different things. That a lot of that training happens over the first 6 months after being hired. I spoke with Staff Sergeant Halliday, who you might recognize from your team.
I sure do.
Right. So you may have seen him out in the community. He was part of our outreach team, but his home position is the supervisor for our training unit. So he's back there now. He's going to join us on a few trips down to the police college later in a few episodes. But I talked to him just kind of initially on kind of some of that training that's going to happen right at the beginning.
So initially, when we have a new recruit, we are taking people who usually have no experience in policing or the law, or it's a very different job to do. So we really have to onboard a lot of information very, very quickly, take them from that civilian realm and bring them to the police officer realm.
After being hired, they first attend class at our police headquarters for 3 weeks, and we call this pre-Ontario Police College training. Next, a recruit attends the Ontario Police College virtually through online training for 3 weeks using computers here at police headquarters. That is followed by 11 weeks in person at Ontario Police College in Elmer. Once they graduate from police college, they return to the service for 7 weeks of what we call post-OPC training or post-Ontario Police College training. Finally, each recruit needs to complete 48 shifts under the guidance of a coach officer, responding to all types of calls alongside full-fledged police officers.
They go to shoplifters, arrest people on warrants, do foot patrols. They're brought along to the sergeants so that the management team of that shift has a good idea of who they are and maybe what their limitations are, what they need to work on, what their strengths are.
After all this is when a recruit is able to go solo, taking calls on their own as a member of our neighborhood policing patrol unit. Rachel, how would you describe patrol?
Yeah, so patrol is the role that everybody starts at as a police officer. Even if you want to be a detective later, you always have to start on patrol. In patrol, you are riding in the police car, you're out in the community, you are responding to all the calls for service, so whether they're 911 calls or non-emergency calls, and whatever the needs are in the community, that's the calls that you're attending to. Patrol doesn't just only entail responding to calls for service. I think a lot of people don't know the amount of paperwork that goes on the back end of that, making our notes in our notebook for everything that we're doing, as well as, if you end up arresting somebody, doing statements, processing the person, taking them to the cell block, doing a court package, attending court. There's so many things that you have to do as a patrol officer, but your main role is responding to calls for service within the community.
So it's really that officer, when you're seeing that cruiser driving by in the community, that's the officer, not generally driving plain clothed vehicles, undercover vehicles. They're more that very obvious presence that you see floating around the community. They're most likely, if you're calling in for service, majority of the calls of those type of calls are probably a patrol officer.
Yeah, that's right. They're in a marked car. They're always in a police uniform. They're the ones that are very visible. So if you pretty much most calls for service that are made, it's a patrol officer who's going to be the initial person responding.
Perfect. Yep. That makes a ton of sense. And so we wanted to bring that perspective of what it's like also on patrol kind of into this. So we're going to pair it up with kind of what Elias is learning down at OPC with someone who's been on a couple years and has some of that experience to kind of compare the two together so you can really get an understanding of what they do in a shift and where those skills kind of come from. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm going to bring in Amanda.
Oh, great.
South 5 to Bravo to HQ. just stopped here. Forgot.
So Amanda is an officer. She's working in patrol and is assigned to our South Division, which is down in Cambridge. That's kind of her home base that she works out of. She was kind enough to entertain me, riding along with her to really get an understanding of what the job looks like and how she uses those skills that she learned through that whole long training process. So Amanda's much like Elias in the sense that she always knew that she wanted to be a police officer from a pretty young age.
So I was in grade 8 and I went to a field trip and I saw a female police officer speaking, and that was kind of the first time I realized that a female could do this job, and it was something that stuck with me. And then I ran cross country in high school, and my coach was an OPP officer and he had a big influence on me. So just another example of another great person being an officer. And I didn't have anyone in my family that were police officers, but just through those couple examples, it inspired me to do this job.
Visualize in your head when you first got your uniform, like how did that feel?
I was so excited. It felt like a very proud moment, especially when you dream about wanting to do this. And because I wanted to be a police officer since I was probably 13 or 14, it was just one of the most exciting days.
Amanda really stood out to me as someone who knew what she wanted to do from an early age. All of her choices in high school and through post-secondary education were kind of to help her prepare for this job.
So I graduated from high school in 2014 and I went to University of Waterloo for legal studies, and I did my minor in human resources. I graduated in 2018, and after that I did a post-grad at Conestoga College in mental health and addictions. I figured it was something that would really help me with this job path. And then right after that in 2019 I applied, and then I got hired.
So Rachel, these two cases are pretty close together. So both Amanda and Elias, I mean, this is something we want to do for a long time. But there's really a spectrum probably of the type of people that are applying. Is this typical that you're seeing in applications these days, or what are you thinking?
There's honestly a big mixture. There's definitely some people who it's been their dream since they were a kid to be a police officer and serve the community. But we also have people coming into it, as a second career. Maybe they're not fulfilled in whatever job that they're doing and they want to do something more meaningful. And they're, seeking out policing as a career that would be more fulfilling to them. So it really is a mixed bag.
I met Amanda at our South Division building just at the start of her shift. And that's just off the busy Hespeler Road in Cambridge. She had started her shift just before me, and it sounded like she already had a busy afternoon. After a quick check-in with her supervisor, we headed out in her fully marked, fully labeled police car. It was a Ford Explorer SUV police car. And I was hoping to get in a few questions before she got really busy.
What do you find most challenging about the day-to-day job?
No. I'm trying to think of what's a good answer to say here. I'll wait for this to go.
So I didn't get very far in my questions until the first call came in over the radio.
979 is being called in by the LP here with regards to two subjects, one male, one female. Looks like they are taking large bags of meat and are leaving on foot.
One thing I noticed right away is all the details and things Amanda needed to know or to understand. While she made it look effortless on this simple shoplifting call, there are so many things you need to know, from what she's allowed to do to how she interacts with her coworkers and even the shoplifters themselves.
So what... Okay, I'm just going to read something to you real quick. You may be charged with theft. You are not obliged to say anything but whatever you say. Yep, so two people were arrested for shoplifting for theft under. They concealed some meat and didn't pay for it, and they were arrested not far from the store. And one person will be released on an undertaking, and the other person was trespassed. And now I'm just getting some statements and video and a receipt.
Thank you. Thanks for the quick response.
If there was a takeaway from this and seeing her work on this call and some of the others that night, I think being a police officer definitely doesn't come naturally. It involves a ton of preparation and learning. No one comes into us here, I think, knowing all these things they need to know just to be an effective police officer. There's definitely a steep learning curve right at the start of the career?
So you learn your authorities, so you have to know grounds to arrest someone or what reasonable grounds are, and your authority to arrest someone in that call would, the charge is theft under, so taking the product without paying for it or making no attempt to pay. So I had to do notes for that, getting statements. That would be something that you would learn at OPC.
So this podcast is really going to focus on that process of becoming the police officer, and what they do in their everyday job. However, one thing that's apparent to me with both kind of Elias and Amanda, that they've come to the role kind of ready and prepared to learn. They've dedicated years of their lives and tailored everything from school to volunteering and sports to really ready themselves for this demanding job. How important do you think that is to make sure that, they're ready to learn? They've come here with that mindset.
I don't think you have to tailor your life and your education to policing specifically. Like we always tell people, you don't have to go to police foundations. Like any kind of education you want to do that you're passionate about, it's gonna give you skills that will be transferable into policing. But I definitely think coming into it with an open mindset and ready to learn, because regardless of your educational background, the learning curve is super high. So come in and be ready to and open to, learn from everybody that you meet, because every police officer also has different strengths and things that they can teach you. So yeah, definitely. So we will leave Amanda and Elias there for now, and we'll check back in with them in the next episode, picking up with Elias as he starts his training here at home at our service, and Amanda as she takes some calls for service on patrol in Cambridge. Mark, thanks for joining me.
Anytime.
We can't wait to hear what is coming up next. Into the Blue is produced by the Waterloo Regional Police Service. It is hosted by Rachel Molnar and produced, reported, and edited by Mark Arujo. Supervising director is Sherry Greeno. Special thank you to the entire dedicated training team at the Ontario Police College, as well as the WRPS Training and Education Branch. Without their collaboration, this production would not be possible.